Welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining. My name is Diponkar Paul, and I'll be presenting how to make sure sensitive data is secure in a modern data warehouse. The session today is demo driven, so you'll have hands on experience learning some of the capabilities of Azure Synapse Analytics, which will help you to protect sensitive data. About myself, I have been working with the data and analytics more than 13 years. I built mid to large data warehouse solution for different industry in my whole career. I'm fortunate to have diverse background. I grown up in South Asia, got education and working experiences mostly from Nordic countries, and recently moved to North America. One of the most important part of me is my community. I am Microsoft Data Platform MVP. I'm leading Toronto Data Professional Community. I do blog, also do public speaking. I'm father of two kids and husband of a beautiful wife. I'm a big promoter of sustainable living. Enough about me. Let's look at what we cover today. Since we're going to talk about how to protect the sensitive data in a modern data warehouse, but the very first point is why we even care. And then we're going to look at what is actually data state encompasses, and we're going to how we can actually secure those data estate, means the data lake, data warehouse. And then there will be demo where we can show how we can actually secure your data lake. And the second demo will be how we can secure your data warehouse too. Or data lakes that's happen in the finance industry, especially in North America, or more specific to Canada, in 2019. And the company, or the financial company called Desjardins, they're one of the largest financial industry in North America. Their customer got hit by this PI data leak. Their personal identifiable information has been leaked. So what happened is, um, there are due to this data leak, it affected close to 9.7 million Canadians who, their PII data or identifiable information has been compromised. Not only that, it costs the company around 200 millions. And then also the reputation damages, right? So when this happened, the reputation damage for the organization. And what they found is there is a rogue employee who was involved for this data leak. The federal privacy watchdog has found this the one of the largest data breach that happened in the financial sector. This has happened because of the series of technological and administrative gaps caused this to happen. Even their report has shown that unauthorized and illegal access to data by a malicious employee. So if you look at those keywords, unauthorized and illegal access, and that happened where a malicious employee was involved. Through this presentation, we're going to tackle those, means how we can tackle this unauthorized access or illegal access, even though there is a malicious employee involved to it, how actually we can um, control or tackle that. Now let's look at what is modern data estate. We mentioned about the modern data warehouse. If you look at this picture, the modern data warehouse is one of the component in modern data estate. If you follow this diagram from left to right, so you got sources, and sources could be your on-prem database. It could be from the cloud, even it could be from the IoT devices. Given in some example, it could be, it's connecting from any kind of database. It could be your Excel file, it could be log file, and if the SaaS application like Workday, Salesforce, you generally call through the API, so the format will be JSON most of the cases, and also the very fast data that's coming from may come from your home smart devices. So those we could consider as a source, and from the source, the data we generally move it to the data lake. um, Data lake is your storage, but in the cloud. Um, it got like storage capability, also got some intelligence to make the analytics top of the data lake too. And from the data lake on the right hand side, when you move the data we move the data to the modern data warehouse. And when it's come to the modern data warehouse, you could think about this as a database, but it got more processing. It's a cloud database, and it's got more processing power, easy to scale, and it's got machine learning capabilities. In previous slide, we saw how data movement happens between different layers. There are, different layers from source and stage, and lastly, data warehouse. However, before jumping into how we make sure data is secure in different layers in data lake or data warehouse, we need to talk about different environments. Why we'll build any IT solution. Production and non-production environment are physically separated. A non-production environment means an environment for development, testing, or quality assurance. And the solution is not consumed by the end user daily basis from the non-production environment. However, the production environment is a place where the latest version of the software or solution is available, consumed by the intended user regularly. So securing the sensitive data that need to be handled in different ways between production and non-production environment. In general, non-production environment is not well guarded with security as like production. Different personas can have access to the non-production environment in a data warehouse. For example, developer, business, like tester, or any stakeholder. So whenever you get the sensitive data from an operational system and push this data to the data lake, we need to scramble data. Means as an example, if you look at this record, it's got name, social insurance number, and the salary. Um, think about this data may coming from your HR system. It could be Workday or any other system. Where is the employee number and social insurance number, and the salary is moving from your source and to the data lake, and from the data lake to the database, and then those data could be consumed by Power BI or any other analytical tool. So as long as the data moving from your source to the data lake, you see, data have been masked. So this name and social insurance number, you're not able to see it, even if it is irreversible. As you see here, we are calling this as a non-production environment. So in your non-production environment, since there will be a different type of personnel can access, so you can mask those data so no one able to see the data. Now, well, how can I do that? Let's have a look at the tech stack here with the Microsoft data stack. So we're very similar, like as you see in the last diagram. So your data, it could be semi-structured data, as I said, if it is Workday or any HR system, or it could be any relational database, probably it's in the on-prem, or as I said, if it's SaaS solution, it could be in the cloud. Then by using Azure Data Factory, Pipeline, or Snaps, Azure Snaps Analytics, here you see, you can uh, build those pipeline which will mask the data and move it to your Azure Data Lake storage. And from there, either you can use any general Azure SQL database or serverless and dedicated SQL pool, which got the enterprise data warehouse capabilities where the masked data can reside. And from there, the Power BI can be used by the business user. Since we're going to, going to see the demo, before we look into the demo, let's have or get familiar with this few components from the Azure Data Factory or data, when you say data pipeline. For example, in this case, this is a we have to use the data flow to mask the data. So we may have the data in a raw layer, and from raw we want to move the data to the cleans layer. Before and in between we actually mask the data. So how do you do it, or what we need to learn before even you start your demo? Is first your data set. Think about data sets like what data you would like to move. So if it is a file, few thousand of records or million records, and it could be database table, it could be, as I said, file. Those are your data set. And then also need to know the link service. What is link service? Link service is nothing but your connection string. If you work on on-premise system, like for example SSIS, you always had to create the connection string, who is have it, your database information, what is the database server, what the table are you're using. Maybe it's not table, but at least your connection string, like your database, server, and your credential. And also some one more things we need to know, which is integration runtime. Here we're using Azure integration runtime. Azure integration runtime is your runtime in cloud which connect um, link services, and then link service connect to your data set. And this integration runtime actually help to move the data from on-prem to the cloud, and inside the cloud from one resource to other resources. There is more to it. You can get more details about the integration runtime through the Microsoft documentation. And very similar things you also need to have at the clean layer side. So you need to have a data set, you need to have link service and Azure integration runtime. uh, but here actually you can, if your like folder or your resource, or sorry, not this resource, like storage account is the same, but you have different folder. In that case, it could be same link service you can use, even the very similar as your integration runtime, but your data set need to be different. Okay, let's have a look at the demo, how we can actually scramble and mask the sensitive data in development or like non-production environment, for example.
Let's look at the demo. So this is where we are. We log into the Snap Studio. So, you go to the portal, Azure portal, and from there, we came to the Azure Snap Studio. And in the Snap Studio, we already have created a pipeline. And that pipeline, what it does is it actually, get the data from source and mask the data and move it to the target. So we have used the data flow component of it. You'll find it under move and transformation. There is this called data flow. We have drag and drop the data flow. As soon as we click the data flow, we'll see there are a few activities there. So the very first activity we have is the source data, where if I click that, you'll find out the source data is, if I refresh it, I should be able to see the data. Very good. As you see, it's a first name, last name, email address, hire date, salary. So this is like Asia data. As you just saw before in an example, it's very similar data. So we got the first name and all PI data here. Now we have one activity that's called derived column activity. In the derived column, what we're doing here is, say for example, first name that would like to mask it, so no one should be able to see the original data in non-production environment. And if you click it, this open expression builder, you'll find out what you're doing. we are using this mask function, like the hash function, SHA2 256. What it does is this hash function is one way masking the data. It's irreversible. So it means as soon as you mask that data, you'll never get back to the original data. And this is how it is intended, because in this is a non-production environment, and all the PI data that we have, we'd like to mask it. So if we can click the refresh button to see, um, even in this drive column activities, what the outcome will look like. See, this is output. So this is the first name. It will show us like this, mouse data. And similarly, we implemented the very same things for the phone number and salary. You can do whatever the column you find that is PI data, you need to do it. You can do it very similar. And the next one is we need to go and find out the other activity called sync. What it does is it um, is connect with your target. Means we got the data from source, we mask it, then we are moving this data to that other place. So here is just the other folder. As you see, we put in the cleans layer that data. So if you run it, say, let's debug it. As soon as we run it, we expect the data will be masked and it will be under the cleans layer or cleans folder. So still running, just few click. We should be able to see the details, what is happening here underneath. Oh, very good, it's done. It succeeded. So how can I see it? In Snaps, actually, if we go to this data tab and go to this storage where we actually move the data. So under this development, you see there is a cleans folder. And if you look at this timestamp 6/6/22 11:36, that's like 37, just a few seconds earlier. And also with the same timestamp, you'll find the updated record set. And we just can create it and select top 100 rows and run it. Now actually I'm running by using the notebook. See, it's auto-generated notebook. That is also the functionality embedded into the snaps where you can easily look into or read the parquet data. As you see, first name has been masked, phone number has been masked. Also, I believe the salary, yeah, salary also masked. Yeah, that's how actually you use the static masking and mask all of your sensitive data. So your PII or sensitive data remain very safe in non-production environment.
As you saw in the demo about the masking, so in addition to mask or scrambling the data, we need to make sure data leak is safeguarded, even though this is non-production environment. So top of masking, we also need to have RBAC and ACL implemented. Um, RBAC is not about identifying or authenticating user, rather it's a managing the access. So Azure role-based access control, which is RBAC, is a system that provide you fine-grained access management of Azure resources. So using RBAC, you can segregate duties within your team and grant only the amount of access to user that need to perform their jobs. An access control list is offered low-level control of access to the folder within your Azure data lake, where role-based access control or RBAC offer high-level control to the entire lake. So if you need something to the fine grain to the folder label, you need to have the ACL, and where RBAC actually is offer a high level contour to the interleg, um, and we just talk about it's a non-production environment, but the same things are true for production environment also. So these are back and ACL also need to or must need to implement in the production environment for Azure Data Lake. We talk about how we can do this, how we can make sure or secure your non-production environment earlier. But now we're going to talk about how what need to be done in the production environment. As you see, the environment is very similar, like what you have seen in in non-production environment. Source remains same, and your data lake and the modern data warehouse, everything is very similar. Uh, so what you need to do is when it's come to how you do implement it, it's just a bit different here. For example, if you look at from the left to the right, so as long as the data, those the same data you saw earlier, the name, social insurance number, and the salary that moved to the data lake, and you see in the data lake we didn't mask it here. It's still the same. But as soon as it's moved to the database, and depend on who is accessing the data, um, that group he or she belongs to in that group can either see the data, like here on the right side, see the data, or not see the data. So this is the master data. But actually, underneath the database it is how what system admins see as the raw data, but who will access the data depending on their access or their if they're intended user, they will see the data. If they're not intended user, they'll not see the data, like they will see the master data. Very similarly, if the Power BI user, they're accessing the database, depending on who has the access, they will see the data. Who doesn't have the access, they will see the master data. And this is something called as the data masking. Means in production, when the data or the raw data is moved into the database, then you can apply those dynamic data masking in the SQL database, or your Synapse dedicated SQL pool, where actually you can say, okay, this group of people can see the data. This group of people will only see the mask data. So what is dynamic data masking? It's the granular permission for Azure Synapse dedicated SQL pool. Also, this is true for Azure SQL database. And you can do or you can apply this data masking to the schema level, to the table level, and to the column level. Also, you can actually mix it. Means you can say, okay, this table and this column. You can do that too.
Okay, let's look into the demo about the dynamic data masking. Let's start the demo. At the very first step, what you need to go is you need to go to the portal.azure.com, like I'm doing it, .com. And as soon as you hit that button, you should get into this page. And since we're gonna look at that Snaps workspace, we're going there as you're seeing. As soon as you hit it, you got open Snap Studio. We're not going there. What our interest today's demo is dynamic data masking. So we need to go to our dedicated SQL pool. As soon as you click there on the left side, as you see, there is a tab called dynamic data masking. As soon as you click it, you will see uh, this page, dynamic data masking, and you see some of the tables here, this schema, this table, column, and mask function. So you see these are the tables. I have already added those columns considered for masking, and this area, as you see, these are recommended field to mask.
Let's get back from our Azure portal to the database. Let's see, we connected the database here. This is the Snaps workspace, and this is the database names. Database name here.
and exactly the same database we have created here, SQL, a dedicated pool. And if I make query, this is I'm just selecting the employee tables, dependent table, and the jobs table. And if I hit that F5 button, and I see I'm able to see everything, right? So though those columns are encrypted, but I can see those all the sensitive data like salary, email address, first name, last name, and everything, right? Because I'm DB owner. So as a DB owner, I should able to see everything and anything. Now let's um, use this user, you know, as the intended user. Let's do this. Only make the query to employees and dependents table. As long as I do that, what is our expectation? This user will still able to see that data. The reason for it is if we go back to the portal, you see intended user has been excluded from this. So it means um, intended user will still able to see the data. As also CC, administrator all are always excluded. That's likewise I was DB owner, and then intended user will also able to see the data. Now let's make the query with the other user, which is like unintended user. See what happened, and we make the execution and see the first name, last name. I'm not sure if you're able to see that. Let's make it bigger. See this first name, last name, email address. Those are all encrypted. Means masked. Not encrypted, it's masked. And see this same here, first name, last name. You're not able to. I mean, the intended user is unintended user is not able to see the data. Okay. Um, Now let's do one thing. Here we go back, and as it is suggested from the suggested column, we add employee's phone number as a mask. Let's click. Phone number has been added. Let's save it. It's saving it here. It's okay done. We go back and make the query again with the unintended user. Because earlier, as you see, the phone number column is still showing here, right? So we expect, as since we have chosen as a mask column, we should not able to see that column as a raw. I mean, should not see the raw data. It should be masked. Okay, what happened to this? See, phone number, it has been masked. Okay, now what you're gonna do is we're gonna go through the granular level of dynamic data masking. If you remember, there were three different type of it. So one of the schema level. So think about, we have the HR manager, right? So HR manager should have more privilege than other role. For example, it could be employees, it could be any other user. So here what we'd like to do is HR manager would like to give him or her um, permission specific to the schema. So here what you're doing is let's before even giving the access, let's see what is his or her access now. Okay. HR manager is not able to see any sensitive data. First name, last name, email address, even the same. Those other table, uh, the manage even maximum minimum salary is not able to see at all. Now what you can do is we can apply this role, apply this to dynamic data masking, or I say run unmask on schema. Then the schema, what schema we're talking is DBO, and to this role we're saying this HR manager was not able to see that earlier, but Now HR manager will able to see that. Let's execute this. We did that. Now we come back and run the same query. What is our expectation? Our expectation is for the DBO schema, HR manager should able to see the data. Okay, it looks good. See, the first name, last name, the phone number, even the here, first name, last name, all the DBO table is able to HR manager able to see the data. But interestingly, what happened? Minimum salary and maximum salary is still showing the 00 is the masked one because their schema is different, right? So if you look at this is DS schema. We only applied this unmasked to DBS schema. That's the reason still for the DSG jobs table for HR manager, the data is masked, which is intended. Okay, let's have a look at the second granular level of dynamic data masking, which is table level. So we have HR employee as a user we already created, and we'd like to see how HR employee behave. Does he or she have it already access or not? No, it's the same. HR employee cannot see the data. It's all masked, as you see, masked. Email address masked, and everything is masked actually all other table. What you're going to do is, with very same way, we're going to grant unmask on one particular table. We're talking about now tables to this HR employee. Let's execute that. We have executed it. It's done. Now we're going to see what happened. What is our expectation? Our expectation is this DBO dependent table, HR employee able to see it. Okay, that is what you got as expected. So employee table still masked, everything is masked as expected, but this dependent table, see the first name and last name is shown here. Same DS jobs, this is a mask because we only applied that unmask for this HR employee to one particular tables. Okay, now let's go and look into other scenario where what you're going to do is we're going to do the column level dynamic data masking. So we have data science user. There's another user, and let's see how this user have access to the data. Okay, very same. First name, last name, email, everything actually is masked. As you see, everything is masked. Now what you're going to do is we're going to go and apply these rules. Okay, actually we're applying two rules here. One where that you can do two means two different rules you can apply to the dynamic data. One is we are unmasking to the only to the data science DS schema, and also we're unmasking few different columns to the employee tables. So first name and last name. So whenever we're gonna apply that, as soon as we apply it, let's do that. We just hit the execute button. We have applied the rules. We are saying we're unmasking to the schema. We are also unmasking these two columns to this employee table. So what is our expectation now? Our expectation is that data science schema should be shown. Let's see what happened. See, okay, data science. See this table. The user is able to see that minimum maximum salary. Also, what he did is employee tables, two different columns, first name and last name. This user able to see it. But what happens to the other columns? No, the user is not able to see email, phone number, even the other table like the dependent table. See, is not able to see it.
We saw the demo about the granular level of dynamic data masking. You can implement this to your production environment definitely, but in addition to that, we need to make sure all the way your production environment is secure. And You see there are a few items in this slide where probably some of the items you already do. Well, not probably, actually you do some of the items, and some of the things you can also consider implement it. For example, what I'm saying, you must do it. So one of the items, if you start with like authentication, so you must have Azure Active Directory authentication implemented, especially in organization when some people or any user log into the Azure SQL database or any database. This is generally some Active Directory authenticated, and sometimes you may also have SQL authentication. And next part, when it's come to the access control, then of course you got your SQL permission, say roles and your permission. Like for example, some people will only have access to the read access to the table, some cases read and write, and so on. And also, you know, um, some of the things also part of the access control is, for example, the row level security. What is row level security? Is this will make sure that particular rows only have access to the intended user. That you can do um, through the row level security. Also, you got option here to implement column level security. Through the column level security, this ensuring that a specific user can access only certain column of table um, which they should have access to. Um, Also, some of the pins that come under data protection, as you see, encryption in flight and encryption at rest, I just strike through because that we don't do it. It's Azure itself or the cloud platform. They make sure the file when they're moving between different resources in the cloud, they are encrypted. Is in flight or at rest means even though if the file actually some way hack or someone got outside of your organization, those files, this data are encrypted, so no one should able to see those data. So that is part of the data protection. Then consider um, we also have other available option, column level encryption. For example, you can create those, you can do that encryption for the columns, as we actually saw in the dynamic data masking. When you do this column, say okay, we mask those columns, so only those column will have access to the intended users. Very similarly, column level encryption will not mask the column, rather encrypt the column, encrypt those column. It means with the decrypt or decryption key, you should be able to view the data. But when it's encrypted, no one should be able to see those encrypted column. um, and number four, dynamic data masking. You saw it, how it can actually implement that dynamic data masking. And moreover, you also have the option, discovery, classifying, labeling, and reporting those sensitive data in your database. So it means if you'd like to label that or classify that, those data, you can do that through Azure Snaps Analytics. Now, question to you: what do you think now? We learn so many things. We can so many ways we can protect our data. All right, the secure data, or secure the PII data, or any sensitive data in our organization. But what do you think? Do you think still we are secure? I mean, is your organization secure from unauthorized or illegal access? Give it a shot. Think about it. Think it. Well, what do you think? Okay. Yeah, I know. I know what you're thinking. Well, that you are right. We are still not safe. The If you remember at the very beginning, we talk about unauthorized or illegal access by malicious employee. Uh, that is, that is what it's happening now. So, given an example, it's like keeping your valuable items in a safe box in your home, and where you and your partner both got access to it, but one of you decided to steal and run. Well, Do you think? I mean, and who gonna take care of that? I mean, this is your partner, and you live at the probably at the same place, and then someone decide to do something, and that is exactly can happen in the organization. So what I'm talking about here is the system admin or a DB owner, right? So if those people decided to do it, anything, then it's still by applying all sort of things, still you're not safe. Yeah, so Snaps or SQL, Azure SQL have some more capabilities to really track those kind of suspicious behavior, suspicious activity. So you can be actually protecting your sensitive data um, by looking at it proactively, not like reactively, rather proactively. So there is some kind of options or tools we have. Say for example, SQL auditing is one of them. So through the SQL auditing, you gain insight into any discrepancy, any anomalies that could indicate any business concern, or any suspected security violation. And it also, this SQL editing also help you maintain regularity, compliance, and understand what happening in your database, all the activities. And the ledger, which is still in a public preview, sorry, it's not in a general available, but it's still, you can have a look, and and probably you can also implement that. Ledgers, what ledger does is ledger helps protect data from any attacker or high privilege user. As I said, it's a DBA or system admin, you know, uh, uh, and any cloud administrator too. Uh, with this traditional ledger, the feature preserve historical data. So if any row is updated, for example, in the database, and in that case, the previous value is maintained and protected the history table. So you can actually enable those ledger options in your database, and you can have all the history. So what do you learn today? We learned that data leak at the organization can be devastating. It's with the economically as well as the reputation wise, right? And we also learn how we can make sure your sensitive or PI data remain safeguarded in development environment. Also, we have learned how this could be your sensitive data can be protected in the production environment by applying dynamic data masking and many other options. And lastly, we also got into auditing and ledgers option. um, Still thanks to Microsoft for for the partnership and all the support we get for the data platform summit. Thank you everyone for joining. And there is a different ways to win prizes. A look at the hashtag and what is described here to win the prizes. And that brings us to end of the session. I'm still available in the chat and Q&A box to answer more questions or connect with me in the virtual networking lounge. Thank you so much. Have a good time.